On today's Locked On Senators, we're back to our exit interviews. Today, we're going to discuss the seasons of Thomas Chabot and Erik Brannstrom.
And as the Ottawa Senators head coaching search intensifies, we take a look at a guy with plenty of experience.
We'll get into all that, plus NHL playoffs. That's all coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 1037 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. A reminder, you can follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where we say hello and let you know that a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go. It's the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. Join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store and Google Play. Today is Thursday, May 2nd, and Pilsy, it's time for our second chance at a blue team elimination day.
Ross, this is going exactly how I drew it up, though. Remember, I didn't want them to go out last time. I wanted them to have hope and then lose in Toronto at home. So shaping up to be exactly as I hoped.
Trying to ruin the Toronto economy, have these people pay their $600 to go into the library, crowd the TTC, just a bunch of sardines moving through Union Station just to watch them lose at home. You are really sick.
Yeah, I'm a sicko.
So you do you actually think it's going to be over tonight? You don't think the Leafs can carry momentum from a OT winner into home game 6?
I mean, a big part of it is going to be whether Austin Matthews plays or not. I feel like it's still up in the air. If he doesn't play, I think they're cooked.
Yeah, well, we'll see tonight. Only game on the NHL schedule after so many series ended far too soon. We do have a double dip tomorrow night. Canucks in Nashville, Dallas in Vegas. Speaking of that game, did you see how it started? 3 straight #Sens abroad goals right off the bat.
Yeah, Stone, Duchesne, and Dadonov. Classic.
And I think what was even worse for Sens fans is seeing Logan Stankoven doing his thing when the Senators decided Ben Roger would be the pick in the second round. Heck, he could have been the 10th overall pick, and I would have been happy. That kid's going to be a stud.
Big time. Yep, big time.
So, anyways, any other thoughts on the NHL playoffs? Because we got a lot of Sens news to get to with the Todd McLellan rumors. Bruce Garriock just putting out an article. I want to get into not only the candidates that are emerging for the Senators job, but also a scenario that scares the living heck out of me, which would see the literal definition of a head coaching carousel around the National Hockey League. But before that, any playoff chatter you want to get into?
Well, I mean, you got to give stick taps to the Dallas Stars, down 2-0, storming back and now have a 3-2 lead. And it's nice to see that the Nashville and Vancouver series is still going. Like this round 1 is happening too quickly for my liking, Ross. So the extended series, I appreciate those teams battling it out.
So do I. I appreciate when there's not as much of a battle for positions you're trying to fill in your own team, whether it's a left shot or right shot defenseman, and you have to settle for a lefty when you're out on the trade market and everybody knows it. But when it comes to the head coaching searches across the NHL right now, we could see even a couple more opening up. The Toronto Maple Leafs facing elimination, as we discussed, and Sheldon Keefe isn't Brad Treliving's guy. He's a Kyle Dubas guy. So yesterday in his article, Bruce Garriock laid out a situation where they reunite, which would just be the most classic Kyle Dubas, relying on people he knows. Although I did just have my diatribe the other day where I do understand the relationship to GMs and head coaches is important. I get that. But allegedly, Pills, and you brought this up, that the Devils had asked for permission to speak with Mike Sullivan. And I was like, what? You never hear that for a head coach to be offered not a promotion, just a straight move to another organization.
Yeah.
But it could make sense here if Kyle Dubas is eyeing Sheldon Keefe. That happens there. Then he goes to New Jersey, which would leave Travis Green unemployed, which would mean it makes sense that he's interviewing for other jobs.
Yeah, and then a part of that you left out, Ross, is that Garriock mentions in the article that the Leafs would be targeting Craig Berube.
That's the worst part.
Yeah, which would be too bad. We've made it very clear he is our top candidate for the next head coach of the Ottawa Senators. So that would be very unfortunate to miss out on him. But Ross, if that coaching carousel does happen and Bruce's scenario plays out like that, there still is one candidate that the Ottawa Senators are tied to that has a lot of NHL experience.
Dean Evison?
Not the guy I was thinking of.
So who is it?
You want me to reveal it or you? I was teasing to lead you up to let everyone know who it is.
Well, I've got the drum roll going here. One thing I can tell you is that the next coach of the Ottawa Senators, there's about a 50% chance that their name is Todd.
Yeah, definitely. There's high likelihood. Yes.
Todd Nelson, by the way, won his first game of the AHL playoffs, just like your Belleville Senators did. And of course, we did a postcast. We posted that individually. A lot of Belleville Sens coverage on our show the last few days. So we figured, hey, let's put that in its own video, own podcast, have that play. And then here we'll get into the exit interviews, which we don't want to push any further because, I mean, the season's now like 3 weeks almost in the book. And we want to make sure that these exit interviews are fresh. As I was saying, Todd Nelson wins his first game, but Todd McLellan is the name we're discussing today as a serious candidate. Now, John Rosen, a LA Kings insider, he was the one who tweeted out last night, and we knew from Bruce's article and the tea leaves, whether it's TSN or whatnot, that it makes sense that Todd McLellan would be a fit stylistically in terms of the experience and the fact that he's been on a lot of different benches. So not only experience in terms of length, this guy's first coaching job in 1994 in the WHL. And he's also a guy who, you know, checks the boxes for the Senators in terms of a defensive minded coach. Now, how do you think Sens fans would respond not only to Todd McLellan, the guy, and you can get into that too from what you know, but everyone's mentioning the 1-3-1. Could the Senators have the system returning in the neutral zone, that 1-3-1 trap?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't love the idea of going back to the 1-3-1, especially, Ross, with the way this team's roster is designed. It's designed in such a way that hopefully you can outscore a lot of your problems with the talent they have up front, and goaltending is still a big question. So relying on a 1-3-1 where you don't let your offensive players do what they do, and then you have to be very, very efficient defensively, might not be the best strategy for this team, but it worked in the past. Guy Boucher's 1-3-1 system, the system, had a lot of success back in the day. But the thing with Todd McLellan that I like, Ross, is if you want to coach with NHL head coaching experience, well, you got it in Todd McLellan. He's been a head coach in the NHL since 2008, 2009, where he started with the San Jose Sharks. They won their division, first place in the Pacific Division that year. And he has a total of 1,144 NHL games coached. So for those people that are like, I don't want a rookie coach, blah, 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 like, you don't have to worry about that with Todd McLellan. And Ross, pretty good record too. 598 wins, 412 losses, 134 draws. So this is a guy that he has the coaching experience that a lot of fans are calling for, not just on the Sens, but for all those fan bases that have head coaching vacancies. He could be someone that's very sought after, and he could be in line for a big payday. So if the Ottawa Senators truly are interested in Todd McLellan, Michael Andlauer better open up the wallet, because it's going to be an expensive contract, in my opinion.
Well, that's where people who are cool on this hiring, and we asked that Sen Central, how'd you feel if the Ottawa Senators hired Todd McLellan? And it was pretty split. I was almost surprised at how many people were like, no, no, not him. Well, those same people, I'm not sure will be very happy no matter what. Like, all coaches are bad is definitely a narrative that some fans have, where it's like, hey, just let the players go out there and play. And they almost just feel like a scapegoat when you need to blame someone. Oh, there's the coach, the guy in the suit behind the bench. Let's blame him. But when it comes to Todd McLellan, you're going to get a guy who's valued around the league. So at least you're not going to get the bargain bin hunter comments where it's like, look, it's not a first-time head coach. It's not a guy who can't command on the open market. Frankly, I think they'd probably have to outbid another team. Yeah. I do think Todd McLellan will be hired this summer in one of the vacancies. So it's an interesting name to add to the conversation. Really, it's Craig Berube, Todd McLellan, Dean Evison are like the three that have head coaching experience that are in the mix. And then the other names that keep coming up, Todd Nelson. We've got David Bell has to be discussed, the coach of the Belleville Senators, and John Gruden. So the list is going to continue to grow. We're actually starting to make a graphic here with all the names that we hear. And as the weeks go on, we will continue to update you on what we hear for the Sens head coaching search.
Let's add one more candidate just to get crazy. If you really want to try something new, Claude Giroux, player coach.
Okay, I thought you were going to say Gavin Giroux. You're going to put the kid immune to criticism. Can't say anything bad about the kid. Hey, shoot the puck. Puck's on net, puck's in deep, and score goals.
If Gavin Giroux was the head coach, Chicky would be getting a lot of attention. Where's Chicky?
Yeah, got to put him on the power play. Got to put him out at even strength. We'll have Jacob Chikrin, Jacob Bernard Docker, and Travis Hamonic exit interviews tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But on the other side, we will get to our Thomas Chabot exit interview. We will then chat about Erik Brannstrom later on in the show. Leave a comment below your thoughts on Todd McLellan as potentially the next Ottawa Senators head coach. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Monopoly Go. Guys, you already know the classic Monopoly game, and why not spice things up with the mobile game Monopoly Go? We got to pause to let you know about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play, pause, challenge. You guys already talked about that, but there's so much more good stuff in this game. We got to let you know. You can team up with your friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much you can get. They got unique stickers that you can trade with your friends so you can complete albums, bigger prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the board with. If you're tired of the hat or the car, you can get different ones. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every single day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. They have unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover on Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on with Monopoly Go.
Today's episode is also brought to you by the Glebe Central Pub, right in the heart of the Glebe at 779 Bank Street. When you head to the Glebe Central Pub, you know you're going to get a great meal, great beers, great drinks, and also the atmosphere to match. At the Glebe Central Pub, they always want to make sure that there's something going on, whether it's wing night every Monday, live music every Saturday, or in between, like open mic night on Wednesdays. We've got jazz night was last night, so they've always got their updates on their social media, Glebe Central Pub. It's the best place to go when you're in the Glebe. Lansdowne, great spot to go. The weather's turning. Go out and have a great day at Lansdowne. Go shopping and then stop by the Glebe Central Pub. PWHL playoffs, hopefully, fingers crossed, coming soon to Lansdowne. The Red Black season's around the corner. I know Atletico Ottawa got underway. So pair that with a great time at the Glebe Central Pub. The vibes are free at the GCP. Go visit them in the heart of the Glebe at 779 Bank Street and let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. All right, Pill. Pillsy, here we are. We're already 2 days into May, 5 days away from the NHL draft lottery, and it's becoming a bit of a running joke. You and I forgetting at the end of the episodes to do the Tankathon spin.
Yeah, not a good look for we've been advocating that we should be the ones to represent the Sens. We would just not show up. So that wouldn't be good.
We will show up on draft lottery night, live stream around 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, May 7th, when the Senators will win the draft lottery.
For second overall.
Okay, if you want second overall, let's get second overall. So 2 spins each coming at the end of today's show. All right, now back to our exit interviews. Thomas Chabot, a season that I think he would describe as frustrating, but when he was healthy, I think Sens fans would describe as encouraging. Pillsy, how would you sum up the season of Thomas Chabot?
Yeah, I think in the short amount of time he was able to play this season, which unfortunately was only 51 games. 30 points in 51 games is pretty solid for Thomas Chabot. I feel like he really found a way to contribute in different ways than in years past, where before he was always the number one defenseman on the number one power play unit. Whereas this year, Jake Sanderson kind of took his spot there. So Thomas Chabot had to find other ways to contribute. And he's one of those guys similar to Jake Sanderson, where his skating is a big part of his attributes. He's able to get back on plays. He's able to pinch a little bit more risky because he knows he's got the speed to get back if he needs to. And he's just a smooth skating defenseman out there. So I know we talked a lot about how is this decor going to shape up next year? Chabot or Chychrun, maybe one of those guys have to go. I really think that Thomas Chabot fits into this team a lot better. And I think if you can get some more health from him, he's going to be a major impact for this team when they start winning games.
And with Thomas Chabot, it's worth noting that he is going to have a minor wrist surgery. If not, he's already had it in the last week or so. Bruce Garriock reporting that. And he just wasn't right this season. Apparently that wrist has been bothering him upwards of 2 years. So it's different than the lower body injury he dealt with throughout the season. But like, that's got to be something where they have to get it taken care of. But it sounds like he's going to be back ready in time for a complete summer of training. So we won't hear at training camp that, oh, he's just starting to get back on the ice or whatnot. So huge summer for him, I believe. And when you look at the end of the season, like he came back, sure, Pillsy, against New Jersey, like for that last stretch. Those last 7 games were, I'm assuming, for conditioning more than anything. Like he was able to play, but he wasn't the same as he was for the rest of the season, only contributing 1 goal, 1 assist. And that goal was a net front tip with a minute left in front of Montreal to get the tying goal. We were boots on the ground for that one. But when Thomas Chabot was at the peak of his season, was when he was snapping it around and using his vision. I thought he was really good at coming out of the zone, and instead of just kind of head down, and maybe this is a systems thing, maybe this is coinciding with Jacques Martin coming over, but I felt like his first pass out of the zone was a lot crisper than it maybe had been, or he was hitting guys in stride, and he was able to create more speed without having to do it himself. So conserving energy for him, but allowing the puck to do more of the work. So I'm hoping for more of that from Chabot, because when he gets in trouble is when he's trying to dangle too much, especially coming out of his own zone. And he's prone to giveaways. Most defensemen are when they're in those scenarios. So he's been moving the puck really well. We know offensively he's got the instincts. He's got the vision. 9 goals is a nice little kind of feather in his cap as well this year.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. I was looking through Chabot's offensive numbers, Ross, and I feel like people forget that this is a guy that had 55 points at one time. The 2018-2019 season.
I hate that season.
Yeah, it was a weird one, but Thomas Chabot doesn't hate that season. That's his career high, 55 points. So this is a guy that can be a premier offensive defenseman in the NHL. And I think with having Jake Sanderson carry a lot of that load that Thomas Chabot used to have to carry, I think Chabot can excel even more, where you got him playing a little bit less and up against other teams' second and third lines rather than every night up against top pairs when he's not really a shutdown guy. So I think this might benefit Chabot in a big way.
I think so too. And this was the first season in Thomas Chabot's career as well, where he wasn't the team leader in ice time. Sure,
Yep.
it was 10 seconds difference between him and Jake Sanderson. Obviously not in total ice time, but per game. Thomas Chabot played 23:03 per game this season. And even just from his own standpoint, forget about the comparisons with other guys on the team. For him, that's the fewest minutes per game he's played since his rookie season, when he averaged 17 minutes and 30 seconds. He's been above 24:15, and for the 3 seasons when DJ Smith took over, he was above 26 minutes per game.
Yeah.
Last year he was down at 25, and this year 23. So I love when Thomas Chabot is at 21 to 23 minutes a night. He's fresh. He's not looking exhausted out there. And man, I will maintain that I blame the Ottawa Senators for Thomas Chabot's non-linear development. I think that if they had handled him better in a developmental phase and not rushed him to be number one everything, 26 minutes a night, I think he would probably be more durable now, because he's a tough guy. He's just getting these injuries now that you have to think it's like, well, is it wear and tear? Because this guy's played as many minutes as a 32-year-old, and he's only 26 still.
And hasn't sniffed the playoffs. Like that's the thing, Ross. Like, if this was a team where Thomas Chabot early in his NHL career was battling for playoff position, sure, you got to put your top guys out there, play them 28 minutes a night. But how many hundreds of games hundreds of meaningless games did Chabot play more than 25 minutes? Like, it was laughable at one point. Like, there was times where Thomas Chabot was playing like 28 minutes for like 4 games in a row. And it's like, what is the point of this? Why are we just running this guy through the mud here? And that's where it would have been nice if Pierre Dorion could have, sheltered him a little bit more in those early years, given him some better guys on defense that could handle some of that responsibility. But it just felt like every single year it fell on him. And that's why, similar to your point, Ross, the wear and tear on him, it's no coincidence that it seems like at the end of every single year, he seems to have an injury. He's beat down from year after year of this. And at the end of the season, it's just too much for him. And you can't really blame him. So I really think that we're going to start to see a new Thomas Chabot now that Jake Sanderson has taken that role from him. And now he's an established NHL player. So if he can stay healthy, I don't see any reason why he's not within the 40 to 50 point range every single season. I mean, look, he only played 51 games and he had 30 points here. Like, he could easily get to that mark.
And -3, believe it or not, he's done it twice in his career. It's the best season he's had, except for his game where he played 1 game, but he was -2 in that game, but still a better season overall. It was against the Coyotes. I still remember that game. They're like, oh, maybe you should go back to junior. Just 1 more year. Go dominate there. And then what's he do? Thomas Chabot became the only defenseman to ever win most valuable player at the World Juniors. This guy has the pedigree, and that's another guy where we always talk about, like, does this core have it? And it's like, individually, they've all had so much success at different levels. It's like they are good players. It's about bringing them cohesively into a team, not a club, a team, Pilsy. I know you like that one. So Thomas Chabot, exit interview for him. 52% expected goals. That's the 4th best mark on the Ottawa Senators among defensemen after third after Sanderson and Zub. Thomas Chabot right there as well at 52%. So all in all, like a positive impact player analytically, positive impact player in terms of the counting stats. I thought that defensively he was better this season, and it all stems, we believe, our conclusion is that Thomas Chabot, less is more with Thomas Chabot. Finally, what do you think that he should be focusing on this summer? Something maybe you saw in his game where you're like, okay, maybe this could improve a little bit.
Well, Ross, I'm going to spin this a different way. It's not something about his game he needs to improve or change at all. I'm going to take a look at the inconsistency of defensive partners for Thomas Chabot. Now, we're doing our exit interviews in D pairs, so we have him with Branny here, who is one of the guys he spent a decent chunk of time with. But Thomas Chabot actually spent most of his time with Jacob Chychrun, 342 minutes together. did not work out. That experiment did not go the way they had hoped. So they split them up, and then he played 240 minutes with Erik Brannstrom. I thought that was okay. He spent 146 minutes with Jacob Bernard Docker. He spent 130 minutes with Artem Zub. What I'm getting at is, for a guy that only played 51 games, he shouldn't have had this many defensive partners. And since the moment Thomas Chabot was drafted, it seems like they've been trying to find a defensive partner for him. And they had one, Ross.
Quick, try to name as many as you can.
Well, okay. Ron Hainsey.
Yeah.
The guy I'm referring to that they need to get back, who is his best defense partner, Dylan DeMello.
Okay.
Well,
Nikita Zaitsev.
Yeah, Nikita Zaitsev, the guy he spent most time with.
Crazy.
Did he put I want to say Johnny Oduya even got in the mix with Thomas Chabot. I wouldn't be surprised.
For his rookie year, I believe so. And then you can add in as well, Artem Zub was kind of brought in as like, the defensive responsible.
And when Jacob Bernard Docker was drafted, everyone's like, there's the guy. There's his partner that's going to work. Now, I still believe there could be a chance that works, but JBD can't be elevated to an everyday top 4 role just yet. So that's going to have to wait. I would love if they could find a way to bring Dylan DeMello back, get those two together again. Or, like we've already mentioned, a guy like Chris Tanev, I think, would make a great D partner for Chabot as well. So that's the thing, Ross, I think is going to be needed to look at to help Chabot here, is find him the right partner and allow them to have some consistency.
Let us know in the comments what you think about Thomas Chabot, not only last season, but going forward as a key member of the Senators blue line, a guy who's still signed for multiple years at $8 million per season. All right, on the other side, it's time for Erik Brannstrom's exit interview. That's coming up next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA, NHL, and AHL, and baseball is in full swing in the regular season, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. You can even bet on the PWHL on FanDuel because FanDuel has it all. Ross, I know you got a couple parlays going last night. You were mixing a couple games together. That worked for you. So if you want to do parlays, you can do that with FanDuel. If you want to do totals, shot totals, props, if you want to do futures, you got to have a diverse portfolio. You can't just do single game betting. You got to have a couple futures sitting there. Ross and I both have the Rangers to win the cup as a future, so we're holding on to that as it grows. And you can find ways to get your bet on with FanDuel as well. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, North America's #1 sportsbook.
Really fun conversation there about Thomas Chabot, a guy who I just think has more potential in his game despite turning 27 years old during last season in January. I still believe in Thomas Chabot, and there's still some who believe that Erik Brannstrom can be a top 4 defenseman. Our exit interview for Erik Brannstrom, the most polarizing figure on the Ottawa Senators roster. Pills, you think that's fair to say?
No, no, I think that was the discussion of, 2019, 2020, and maybe even 2021. But these days, I would not say he's the most polarizing player on the roster. I wouldn't even say he's the most polarizing player on the D-core, Ross.
Wow. Okay. Because there's still a lot
I don't even think he's that polarizing at all anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
I disagree with that. I think there's people who think that Erik Brannstrom's an AHL defenseman or a guy who can't play on a playoff team. And there's others who see him at the end of every season when Thomas Chabot has his yearly injury where they're like, wow, this guy can move pucks. He's a top 4 defenseman in the NHL.
I think people that think he's a top 4 defenseman in the NHL need a bit of a reality check, unfortunately. Look, I was a Brand stand. I still like Erik Brannstrom, but I think it's time to get real about him. He's 24. We've seen a good sample size of him in the NHL. He's played, Ross, Erik Brannstrom has played 266 NHL games. Like, for people to say, we're not sure about what we have from him yet, I don't buy that anymore. I think Erik Brannstrom has shown what he is, which is a fine defenseman. But just with the way the Ottawa Senators are set up, unless Erik Brannstrom and Thomas Chabot were an elite pair together, I don't think the people that have Erik Brannstrom in a top 4 role are in the right here. I'm leaning more towards either he's a bottom pair guy or it may be time to move on from him to shake things up in the decor a bit here.
266 games is tied for 47th in franchise histories. 2 games away from tying our good pal, Christoph Schubert.
Shuby.
Erik Brannstrom just played his 24-year-old season for the Ottawa Senators, 76 games, which is super impressive considering this guy was stretchered off the ice early in the season on Long Island after taking a awkward hit from Cal Clutterbuck. Contributed 3 goals, gotta say, career high 3 goals, 17 assists, good for 20 points, a plus player on this team, +5, and an expected goals percentage at 5-on-5 of 51.6%. So offensively has his best year of his career, eclipsing last year's total by 2 points. Still, the penalty minutes, man, like 36 penalty minutes. That's 18 minor penalties for Erik Brannstrom throughout the season. And we often see them happen right in front of his own net where he's outsized, outmuscled. These big forwards in the Atlantic Division are just kind of feasting on that Brannstrom and JBD pair. And as a penalty killer, I think is kind of where he's surprised or impressed me the most. But I don't know if that's a good thing for the team or if it's like, okay, he's doing a fine job, but he's still not necessarily the prototypical big. Like, look at the playoffs right now. Every team just has monsters back there that can just shut things down. And that's where I worry that he's caught in this in-between where, yeah, he can be an effective player, but not every single night at the NHL level.
Well, and Ross, it just feels like the Ottawa Senators can't decide what they want from him, right? When he was brought in the Mark Stone trade, everybody thought this is a puck-moving defenseman that's going to put up points. He's we even said this, Ross, when he was down in Belleville, when the puck was on his stick, he could do anything with it. Like, he was dancing around. So you start thinking, all right, this is going to be a power play specialist. He's going to put up major points. And then that wasn't really converting to the NHL. Sure, in the AHL, he was having that success, but in the NHL, he found it hard to put up those points. So it seemed like then the Ottawa Senators said, okay, you're not going to be a full offenseman. We got to get some defense in your game. But we don't think you can really get any offense. So let's really focus fully on making you a defensive guy, which for a puck-moving defenseman, that's like 5'8" or whatever he is. I'm looking at it now. 5'10". Sorry, Branny took 2 inches off there.
Rude.
It's very hard for you to be a physical presence defensively. Like, you see him boxing out in front, and I'll give full credit. He's working out there. He's doing his best. I'm not about to say he's dogging it. I'm not saying, he's one of those offensive defensemen that doesn't want to get dirty and get in the hard areas. That's not true at all. I give Erik Brannstrom full credit for being as physical and getting in the mix as much as he can. But in the NHL, you're just limited when you're 185 pounds and 5'10". That's just a matter of fact. And he can't go full defense. He can't go full offense. They got to find some way to kind of meet in the middle. And I feel like they haven't found that sweet spot yet. Erik Brannstrom is a fine defenseman. But if this decor is going to advance and move on and become better, unfortunately, Ross, I hate to say it, but I'm starting to join the Mark Mathot side of this argument where it's like, I don't know how the Ottawa Senators are going to win when they're relying on Erik Brannstrom as much as they are.
So that's a decision that Steve Staios is going to have to make this summer then, because frankly, they can't run back the same decor. But how many guys realistically can you interchange in one offseason? The beauty of Erik Brannstrom, who made $2 million last season on a 1-year deal, is that he's still an RFA.
Yep.
So he still has no rights. He has arbitration rights, and maybe that's a route they go down. How I would pay to be in the room for that arbitration hearing from both sides.
Yeah.
I think it's going to make a great case study. But like, I watched Samuel Girard very closely this series, Colorado Avalanche, and they're both undersized defensemen. But what I'd say is that for an undersized defenseman, and Erik Brannstrom, again, this guy works. And I have a ton of respect for how he's willing to battle, whether it's in the boards, behind the net. He gives up size in every single fight, but he's always in the fight. He's willing. It's more than half the battle is being in it.
And
but
he gets up when he gets rocked, Ross. We've seen Erik Brannstrom get rocked a bunch. Other than that, obviously that awkward hit with Clutterbuck. But
yeah,
he's not staying down or being small when he gets hit. He gets right back up.
Yeah, and he's gotten better at avoiding the big hit. Because for
key.
a couple of years, it was like we were on watch for him. Like, okay, make sure there's an ambulance in the rink because he's taking some serious contact. But with Samuel Girard, he's so much more dynamic than Brannstrom. Like when he gets the puck, he's able to like shake, shimmy 3 guys, bang, he's out of the zone. I just feel like Branny doesn't really have that element, which is fine. But if he's gonna accelerate to the next level as an offensive defenseman, I think he's gonna need to do that. Because if you see like, oh, Erik Brannstrom played 266 games, like, oh, then he had to have figured it out offensively a little bit. And it's like, no, he's actually getting outscored at even strength by like every defenseman on the team. That's where it's like it's almost confusing to me, Pilsy, because it shouldn't be the case. He's talented, there's no doubt, but like he and Thomas Chabot, we just talked about, they have the same amount of even strength points this season, and Chabot played 25 less games.
Yeah, and that's just it. And I don't know, like, part of me, Ross, thinks they're just going to run it to arbitration and do a 1-year arbitration deal just to kind of keep things going, and then evaluate as the season goes on, or maybe try to move him as a part of a trade or at the deadline or something. I don't even know what to do with Erik Brannstrom, unfortunately, but I just think they have to. He feels like a big part of that decor from when he was brought here to now that just didn't have any success. And I'm not putting that on Branny. I'm not labeling him as the blame for that, but it just feels like that 5-year era we need to move on from. We need to be doing something different. And that's an area where you can do that. Now, I will maintain Erik Brannstrom is a nice defenseman to have in your organization. Like my versatility argument for Branny still rings true. He can play on the power play. He's been killing penalties. He can play on a bottom pair for a short sample size. He can play in the top 4 as well. And he can play left or right side. So like, having a guy like that, when you know there's going to be injuries, especially a guy like Thomas Chabot, who unfortunately has had a lot of injuries, having a guy like Branny that you can plug and play wherever to make up for injured players is nice to have. But yeah, I think the Erik Brannstrom Ottawa Senators era is going to come to a close soon here too. And Ross, the thing too, Erik Brannstrom was a Pierre Dorion guy. He pretty much put his reputation on the line with the Mark Stone Erik Brannstrom trade.
The next thing I was going to say was credit to us. We just got through a whole Erik Brannstrom segment without bringing up how they got him.
Yeah, whoops, that's my bad. But like Pierre Dorion wanted Erik Brannstrom to work out, whereas Steve Stais, there's no loyalty there or no kind of reputation on the line with this player. So
yeah, I'd be looking at a draft day trade to a team like, I mean, San Jose is the easy one because they're obviously rebuilding and don't have any real puck movers. I know they traded for Kalen Addison last year. He's solid, but I think that I think Brandy would do well there too. I think it would be kind of a win-win, but what are you going to get? A 4th round pick for him, 5th round pick. Not sure what the real draw is there. So it's part of kind of reshaking the decor and how interesting this offseason is going to be from the Ottawa Senators. But let us know in the comments what you think of Erik Brannstrom's season with the Ottawa Senators. All right, Pilsy, wrapping up today's show with a few spins. We got the
Yes,
tankathon meter out. We need to do 2 spins each, 2 spins for you, 2 spins for me, 2 spins for the citizens out here. We are doing this daily until May 7th when the NHL draft lottery occurs. 5 days, 8 hours from the time of this recording. And we are all ready to bring you today's spins. Pilsy, your first spin. Anaheim up, Senators number 7. Okay, reset.
Actually,
Senators got number 7 for you. And an 8. 7 and 8 for Pilsy. Who won that one?
Seattle got that one.
Okay. So 7 and 8 for Pilsy, who is still yet to win the lottery in his 9 spins. Buffalo up 10 spots to grab first overall. Disgusting. So I've got 8th overall. I'm feeling first here. 8th overall, and no, I got 7 and 8 as well. This is a brutal exercise, man.
Take us home, citizens. Take us home.
Citizens, I'm feeling a first and a second from them. A 7th. Maybe I should stop saying that. 2 7s.
Wow. Rigged. Chicago got back-to-back first overalls with the citizens there. Yikes. Imagine a 1-2 punch of Bedard and celebrating home.
I would rather not. So far, 0 first overall spins. This is total. We've got 4 spins that were second overall. We've got 10 at 7th, and we have more at 12 or at 8. We have 12 at 8, and once I spun a 9. So shame on me. Pilsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Final thoughts for me is, everyone, if you have not got your tickets to Friday's Belleville Senators game, get going. I will be there, section 105. I'm staying the night in Belleville, so I'm ready to have a
green
good
light.
time. Yeah, celebrate the W, and we got to get out there, support the boys. CAA Arena has a lot more seats to fill than there was Wednesday night.
Yes, and for more on last night's Belleville Sens win, check out our video on YouTube and our audio. We posted the postcast or the audio of the video. Posted the postcast last night.
Audio of the video.
That was an all-time sentence. That was a 9th overall pick for the Ottawa Senators type sentence right there. I'm starting to get nervous about this draft lottery. I don't know why. I just have this feeling that it's all rigged and that they owe the Ottawa Senators a draft lottery win since they're losing a first-round pick in the next 3 years.
That would be nice. That would be nice, Ross. I'm down for that. But I'm not that nervous about this draft lottery because I just feel like the top 10, there's so many good options for the Sens that I don't really care where they pick, honestly.
Okay, well, we'll have plenty of time to discuss. Draft profiles begin on May 13th with a first edition of the mock draft coming right after the draft lottery. So plenty to get to. The summer hasn't even started. We are still doing our exit interviews. We'll wrap up the decor tomorrow, and then next week run through all the forwards with the Ottawa Senators. The head coaching search is still underway. If there's a name, a candidate that you would like to put on the ballot, make sure to comment below on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day, everyone. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.